Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Sian. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. There are loads of helpful videos on this channel. I'm sure you'll find something that you like. I've got for you what I read in June, and there are fewer books than I read in May, which is probably quite unsurprising because I did read quite a lot in May. Although the first two of these books I read in the first 3-ish days of June, and then I had a total reading drought where, you know, sometimes you just don't feel like you can read. You just kind of, sometimes reading you just go off it a bit. So I just had a little bit of a drought in the middle of the month, and then I got back and got 2 books read in the last week of the month. So let's crack on with what I read this month. The first book is called Eve of Man by Giovanna and Tom Fletcher, and this is a kind of dystopian book about the future. They start noticing that girls aren't being born, and it starts slowly and then becomes obviously a massive problem that women are not being born, females are not being born, which means there is no way to populate the country. And then finally, after 50 years, there is the birth of Eve, and Eve is known as Eve of Man because Eve is obviously the answer to all of their problems, because she is the only woman who can save them all, because she's the only kind of fertile woman born in so many years. So Eve is kept in this tower and given this kind of life in a little bubble, and the people keeping her there are basically, you know, she is a prisoner. She can't just say, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm off, guys. So she's very much controlled. Every part of her day is controlled. They even bring in this kind of, it's not like a hologram, but it's a friend for her, and the friend is actually controlled by a man, obviously because there aren't that many women, but the friend is in female form. But there are different people who control the friend, and one of them is this boy called Bram, who is the same age as Eve, and he has a really good relationship through Eve's friend, and it's kind of this story of what happens to Eve, basically. I love the way it's written. Tom and Giovanna wrote the different stories separately, so they each wrote a chapter. So Giovanna wrote Eve's story and Tom wrote Bram's story, is what I understand. And I really loved the way that worked. So each chapter is written by a different person. It's a different story. You can tell it's written in a slightly different style, and that's really, really refreshing. And it was really nice to read the stories from their own perspectives and to read a book which had that kind of dual aspect to it. I love this book. It's exactly the kind of book that I like. I love kind of dystopian ideas and anything that kind of looks into our future and you kind of think, do you know what, that could happen? And so this really, really hit a nerve for me. I finished it in just over a day and I absolutely loved it. I ended it thinking, oh come on please, I want to read the next one, which is a sign of a fantastic book. So I definitely recommend this. The second book I read this month is called Tin Man by Sarah Winman, and this was one that my mum gave to me because she recommended, and it had also been one that had been suggested for the Bookish Mamas book club, but we didn't go for it. And it's set in Oxford, which I love because I was brought up in Oxford, so all of the kind of references I could see, I can, you know, it really helps you to visualise a book when you know all the reference points, so you can kind of see it. It really helps with the narration in your head. I hope everyone else has like a narration in their head when they read a book. If not, it's just me. Tin Man is about 2 boys who grow up together. They're called Ellis and Michael, and they spend all their time together. They're inseparable. They have this kind of really nice, very close relationship until Annie comes into their lives. And when Annie comes into their lives, it kind of changes and it also stays the same, if that makes sense. And it's a book about being gay when it wasn't acceptable to be gay. It's about love. It's about loss. It's a real tearjerker, and it's like tenderly beautiful. It's a beautifully written book, and it just leaves your heart aching for kind of what could have been, and yet you see that it's been a wonderful life, but it could have been so different. And I feel like I'm being totally cryptic, but I just don't want to give away too much of the story. But it's a wonderful, wonderful book. It has tenderness and heartbreak and friendship and love, overall just love, and it's just beautifully written, and it's a really, really lovely book. My only thing I found really hard with this book is there aren't any real chapters, if that makes sense. There are a few, but my brain clearly likes to see like a chapter end and then it switches off for a little bit. So I found it quite hard to read in that I couldn't really put it down. But that's obviously not a bad thing, but I did want to put it down at points, but I don't like to finish until I'm at the end of a chapter, so it's clearly my problem, not Sarah Winman's. The third book I read this month, after my little drought, is called Close to Home, and this is the Bookish Mamas book club read for May. So I will leave a link below to the Bookish Mamas book club if you fancy joining. This is a story by Cara Hunter, and it's set in Oxford again, so I stuck with Oxford for a little bit this month, which is a nice place to stick. And it's a book about a girl who goes missing after a family party. And at first it seems quite kind of clear-cut as to potentially what's happened to this girl, and obviously as the story goes on it gets more and more complicated as to what might have happened. And the detective Adam has his own kind of personal problems with his child who has committed suicide when he was the same sort of age as this young girl who's gone missing. And it really goes into kind of the family and their relationships with each other and how kind of disjointed the family is. And it's a very awkward family, it's a very awkward relationship between all of them. There's obviously a lot of mistrust, there's a lot of insecurity, I guess. It's a really kind of difficult family dynamic to read about, because obviously the more you read about it, the more you kind of think, oh hang on, it must have been that person, and then you read a bit more and you're like, oh no, it was definitely that person. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought I might find it quite hard to read. I know if you saw my Summer to be Read, you'll know that I thought I wasn't so sure about a child going missing and reading a book about that, but actually I've really, really enjoyed it. And it had the most incredible twist ever at the end that I did not see coming whatsoever, and I love it when a book can surprise me like that, because it does not happen often. But the fact that the very end of this book just left me going, what? I was just like, yay, when I finished it, because, you know, I want a book to be able to do that to me. I want to be completely surprised. I don't want anything in the writing to have given away what happened. And in fact, you kind of then want to read it again and just double check what did happen, because I don't think anyone would have seen what happened coming, if that makes any sense. But definitely go and check this out. It's a really, really good book. The fourth and final book I read this month is called Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. And I got this because I read The Girl You Left Behind and loved it. And so I got this one. It's about a guy called Will who is in a big accident when he's quite young. Until that point he's lived like a really fulfilling, full life. It's been adventurous, he goes on amazing holidays, he has an amazing job. And the accident leaves him a quadriplegic, so he cannot do anything really for himself. Into his world steps Lou, who has just lost her job, needs a new job, doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, where she's going, anything like that. She's quite clearly clever, but something traumatic happened to her in her past, and that's kind of been holding her back. And she didn't go to university like it had kind of been anticipated that she would do. She has a boyfriend called Patrick who is like an ultra runner. He's really into his running. They've been together 6 years. They haven't kind of properly, you know, he hasn't proposed, they haven't moved in together. So she's kind of got this relationship that doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere. Then all of a sudden she's looking after this quadriplegic guy who is incredibly depressed. She finds out he's tried to kill himself, and she is basically there to get him to change his mind. He wants to go to Switzerland and have kind of euthanasia and die. He does not want to live the life he's living. I enjoyed the book, but I found it incredibly difficult to read, and I think that's purely because I'm coming at it from a point of view of someone who has a sister who is disabled, severely disabled, who as far as I can see, has a good life. It's not the life I would want her to live, but it's the best life she can live. And I really struggled with this whole idea of euthanasia, especially for someone whose mind is there but their body isn't, because that's kind of the way my sister is. I really struggled with it, and I found, for me, it kind of ruined the book. I guess that's the whole point of the book. So I didn't enjoy it because I was just so torn with my own sense of what's right and wrong and my morals, and I found it was just too close to home for me, ultimately. I'm sure it would be a great book if you don't have anything like that going on in your family, but for me it was too close to home and I couldn't deal with it very well. I found myself really upset by the book. So I'm sure it's a good book, I'm sure it's a great book, but for me, and because of my sister, I couldn't go along with the storyline because I just couldn't agree with it, basically. Sorry, I found myself getting a little bit emotional there. That is it. Those are the 4 books that I've read this month. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to, then please subscribe, and I'd love it if you did subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure you click on the bell so you get a notification when I upload a video. And if you are subscribed, what are you doing? Why haven't you clicked on that bell yet? Go click on it. Then you'll get a little notification and you know when my video is here. Although it will always be here on a Monday or Thursday at 5:30, hopefully. I will see you again soon. All right, bye.